The simulation pod smelled like burning ozone and alien fear. Zorvin had run the Deathworld immersion field 112 times across 4 decades of instructing at the Galactic Academy of Survival Sciences. He had watched Velthian cadets weep. He had watched Praxian soldiers, creatures with 3 hearts and bones reinforced with carbon lattice, curl into themselves and beg for extraction. He had watched an entire cohort of Marian delegates, beings who had survived vacuum exposure through sheer biological stubbornness, emerge from the field trembling and silent, their chromatic skin drained to gray. The field was a masterpiece of calibrated horror. A perfect digital recreation of a Class 9 Deathworld environment. Real atmospheric pressure spikes. Real electrical storm feedback through the neural haptic suit. Real predator audio frequencies tuned to trigger panic responses across 37 known species. It was designed to break cadets. That was the point. You learned what you could survive only by surviving it. Zorvin stood at the observation panel, 6 arms folded in a pattern that meant professional patience, and watched Cadet Kaya step into the chamber. She was small, even by human standards. The file said 19 years old. Brown skin. Dark eyes that moved fast, cataloging everything. She carried herself the way all humans did, upright, inefficient, dangerously exposed, no natural armor, no toxin glands, no echolocation. The Academy had admitted her on a compassionate exchange program. Most faculty considered it a gesture of diplomacy, not a serious enrollment. Zorvin had read her intake evaluation. He had noted, with mild clinical interest, that she had grown up in a place called Indonesia. He had cross-referenced it. A tropical coastal region. Seismic zone. Monsoon-prone. Regular flooding events. Ranked, by galactic environmental standards, as a low-tier Class 2 stress environment. He had felt something almost like pity. The chamber door sealed. The field activated. What the Deathworld immersion field did, in its first 90 seconds, was establish dominance. The sky turned. That was how Zorvin always described it to new observers, the sky turns. In the simulation, the atmospheric pressure dropped 11% in 4 seconds, which triggered the body's emergency response. The temperature swung 40 degrees. Then the sound came, low-frequency rumbling beneath audible range, the signature emission of a predator found on Garvith 4, a creature that had no name in any language because no being who named things had survived encountering one for long enough to do so. Biologically, the field was telling every nervous system present, you are prey. You are small. You will not survive this place. The average cadet lasted 4 minutes before requesting extraction. The record, held by a Veldhari warrior caste graduate, was 11 minutes, 32 seconds. Zorvin watched Kaya. She stopped walking when the pressure dropped. Her shoulders lifted, he recognized it as a breath held, and then released. Her head tilted. She looked up at the simulated sky, which was currently cycling through a false aurora of electromagnetic interference, ribbons of violet and acid green bleeding across the bruised clouds. She did not reach for the extraction toggle on her wrist. She did not crouch. She did not make the sound that so many cadets made, that high, involuntary vocalization that translated across species as I am not ready for this. Instead, after approximately 4 seconds of looking at the electromagnetic aurora, Cadet Kaya said something. Zorvin turned up the chamber's audio pickup. Oh, that's beautiful. He stared at the panel. She walked deeper into the field. At the 6-minute mark, the temperature dropped to simulate a cold snap event. Most cadets, when the cold hit, moved toward shelter. Kaya moved toward the ridge, higher ground, exposed to more wind. When Zorvin checked her biometrics, her heart rate had elevated, but within parameters he associated with exertion, not panic. At 9 minutes, the first predator call sounded. Full volume. Close simulated proximity. Her biometrics spiked. Heart rate jumped. Pupils dilated. Then, 20 seconds later, normalized. She crouched behind a rock formation, not to hide, Zorvin realized, but to listen. She was triangulating the sound. He watched her head move in small increments, tracking, calculating direction and distance with a brain that had no business being this calm. At 14 minutes, the lightning cycle began. This was the part that had ended the Marian delegation. The haptic feedback in the neural suit sent voltage simulations across the skin. Not painful, calibrated carefully for safety, but profoundly disorienting. It made cadets feel like they were dissolving. Kaya sat down cross-legged on a flat stone in the middle of the open field. The lightning split the sky in fractal patterns above her. She watched it. Zorvin realized, with a slow and dawning sense of something he could not immediately name, that she was watching it the way he watched academic feeds. With attention. With the focused, quiet pleasure of someone encountering something interesting. At 22 minutes, she found the river. The field's river was a problem scenario element. Fast-moving, cold, filled with simulated current hazards and debris. Cadets were not expected to interact with it. It was set dressing meant to convey the environment is trying to kill you. Kaya took her boots off. She waded in to her knees. She tested the current with one foot braced against a rock, checked the flow pattern, and then crossed the river in under 90 seconds using a technique that Zorvin had no name for. She recovered her boots on the far bank, wrung water from her socks with practiced efficiency, and kept moving. At 37 minutes, Zorvin manually triggered the extraction. Not because she had failed. Because the field had run its full scenario cycle and she had not requested to leave. Kaya emerged from the chamber with wet boots and mud on her left elbow. She was breathing hard from exertion. Her cheeks were flushed. She looked around the observation room at the cluster of faculty and senior cadets who had gathered once word had spread across the academy network that a human was still inside the Deathworld Field at the 20-minute mark. She looked around at all of them staring at her. "Is there a debrief?" she asked. "Or can I get food first? I think I burned a lot of calories in there." Zorvin heard one of the senior faculty make a sound behind him. It took him a moment to recognize it as a laugh, genuine, helpless, the kind that emerged when the universe behaved in a way that made all existing models feel slightly insufficient. He stepped forward. "Cadet Kaya." He kept his voice even, which required more effort than usual. "You held the field for 37 minutes. The previous record was 11. She looked at him. Those fast, cataloging eyes. "The lightning was really something," she said. "Back home we get big storms. Electrical ones. I used to go to the roof to watch them." A small pause. "My mother hated that." "You were not frightened?" She considered the question honestly, the way humans sometimes did, without the social performance of false confidence, but without embarrassment either. "I was scared when the pressure dropped. And when I heard that sound, the low one, whatever that was." She flexed her fingers, remembering. But scared doesn't mean stop. Scared is just information. It means pay attention. A slight shrug. The river was actually kind of fun. Zorvin was quiet for a moment. He thought about the Velthian cadets who had wept. The Praxian soldiers with their carbon lattice bones. The Marian delegates, gray-skinned and silent. He thought about what it meant to come from a world where the sky actually fell on you. Where the ground moved. Where the water rose without warning and the storms were real and no one was running a calibration to keep the voltage within safe parameters. "You were raised," he said slowly, "on a planet that tried to kill you regularly." Kaya smiled. It was a small, easy expression, not triumphant. "Yeah," she said. "We all were." She looked back at the chamber door, already resetting, the simulated horizon dimming behind the seal. "Same time next week?" she asked. Zorvin made a note in her file. "Recommend for advanced track." He paused. Deleted it. Rode instead. Recommend for instructor track. Some species spent millennia building armor against the universe. Others learned to call the lightning beautiful.